So, can you introduce yourself, first of all? Tell us a bit about
Yes,
who you are, what you do.
certainly. My name is Bence. That I have a second name as well. That's in about sounds like Julius in English, Jula. I studied for 4 years to be a pastor, and in the end, I changed it to be a theologian, a scholar. So I have a certificate of theologian, but I studied to I for 4 years I studied the courses which are required to be a pastor, and together I studied 6 years. So my not just my master, but my I had an I took part in an undivided course, MA and BA, bachelor. My bachelor is also theology. I just wanted
Okay.
to,
Okay.
yeah, and I grew up in the Reformed Hungarian Reformed Church.
Mm-hmm.
That's a very big church in Hungary. Maybe that is the largest one block church in the world. 2 million members about or so. But yeah, it's not that of a too big number, but considering that it's one block church, it's quite big. Uh,
Interesting. So that helps raise an issue. Hungary is a nation apart from its neighbours. People know about Switzerland. They know about the Reformation heritage in England and in the Netherlands and Lutheranism in Germany, but they're perhaps not so familiar with Hungary. So, can you give us a little idea of the Reformed heritage that Hungary has?
yes, certainly. So the historical Christianity developed here separately. Um, um, there was a close connection with Calvinist Switzerland, but apart from that, it's like a smaller cell of the European Protestantism here in Central Eastern European part. It developed separately.
So,
Um,
who are some of the figures that people should know about in the development of the Reformation in Hungary? And
at the beginning, it was not distinct whether these are Lutheran or Calvinistic theologians. This is hard to pronounce. Them it I wanted to mention only one name who was European famous and wrote a thick volume, Dogmatic. His name is Szegedi Kis István. It was translated to Latin and was widely used. It was published with the name Stephanus Segedinus or something similar. He is quite a famous figure of the early Protestant history of Hungary.
so perhaps we can call him Stephen for the for folks
Yeah.
not that familiar. Uh,
Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Um, which is important that the Hungarian Christianity accepted the second Heidelberg, um, no, the second Helvetic confession and the Heidelberg Catechism as an official confessions, nothing else. The Hungarian ministers sent to spectators to the Synod of Dort, for example, but they did not accept that. They did not vote. They just watched. So, and neither was the three-fourths of unity here accepted. Just these two confessions I mentioned. It can
Mhm.
be connected with the Turkish occupation, which started in the middle of the 16th century, just at the dawn of the Reformation era. because Hungary was occupied a large percentage of it by the Turks, starting at 1546, if I'm right.
So you share some history then with what is now Romania and Bulgaria of Turkish domination, and
Yes.
that has had its shape. That I'm sure has helped to shape the national character. Um,
I do not think that that had a permanent impact on Hungary. That
mhm.
was unlike in the Balkan, for example, in Serbia, Hungary became um, just could defend against the Turkish influence. So, for example, Islamic religion is not only very small percentages can be found here in this region. Islamic believers, I mean, adherents.
Interesting. It certainly, from my very limited experience, has a different feel to it than Sofia in Bulgaria. From my very limited experience, there are certainly different influences at play there. So, can you give us? This is a difficult question, but can you give us your assessment of Hungary, religiously speaking, from now in 2016?
Yes. The on paper the country's religious mixture is like on paper there are 60% is Catholic, about 10 Lutheran, and 20, let's say 20% are Reformed. This means continental Calvinist. Not we never use the term Presbyterian because we are historically this church which developed here is a mixture of Episcopalian and Presbyterian. So we use the continental Reformed expression, simply Reformed, and only a few percentage are Baptist, Pentecostal, and non-denominational. So basically these three denominations which are characteristic to Hungary. And unfortunately, I have to say that this country, for the time being, resembles rather a Roman Catholic country and not an Anglo-Saxon country, like, for example, the United States. I mean by that most of the people are traditional churchgoers, conscious. You have to search for conscious believers, except in free churches and small percentages of the mainstream Protestant churches. But so it's not like for example in the U.S., where if you mention a theological term, then a lot of people know what you are talking about. If they came from a church background, a religious background. Here, if they came from a religious background, they barely know anything still. So
Right.
it's like more like Italy or Germany.
On paper, then it's a very Christian country.
Yes, yes.
You say on paper, but could you expand on that? Why do you say on paper? Is there another religious factor at play?
They are not people are not too conscious here. For some reason, the government is quite Christian now. This means only that they defend the cultural aspects of Christianity, but this is not they do not speak like that. They don't really use the name of God in public speeches. This is like a Christianity in the back room, which most people have if they have.
I'm talking to you because we share at least some common perspective on the scope of the Christian faith, that it does not just touch what are commonly thought of as religious questions, church membership, where to put the altar, how to do communion, and so on. In your experience of the churches there, how open are people that you come across to listening to accepting the fact that the Christianity has a wider scope? It talks about matters of state, matters of education, and so on.
This is quite a new concept for them, I think. For those who are only historically traditional Christians, this is an entirely new concept for them, that Christianity can influence the life of the society. There are some, for example, it is interesting that it was recently accepted. It was ushered the Sunday closing of the larger department stores. That was not so long ago accepted. So on Sunday the stores are closed, most of the larger stores. But it came not from such a conscious Christian perspective. It's more like a family protective aspect. So the atmosphere is that we have to preserve the Christian culture, but they do not speak about how we should preserve the Christian faith. That's rather a taboo. Or it's not a topic. Who do not do that? Honestly, I have only met, for example, one neo-Calvinist pastor who believed in the cultural mandate, a few pastors who believe that Christianity should influence the life of the cities. They are mostly adherents of New Calvinism. And there might be some individual pastors who would like to affect the word, but mostly they treat separately the world and their faith, and they do not realize that from the biblical worldview it flows the changing of our environment and the society. They do not make this logical. They do not infer so.
My experience has been hostility, and from those that have some understanding of it from the church.
This concept that the biblical law should, in some form, should shape our life, to that they react quite hostile, I think. After this century-old tradition that you have to accept the gospel and to believe and get your soul saved. After these, this is quite a new perspective that God's law is important in details to us who live today as well.
I see.
They cannot digest. It's a bit too much for them to take in.
Okay.
For Christians.
Well, certainly that seems to be the litmus test, the turning point for most people. What was your first exposure then to a more consistent faith for all of life perspective? A perspective that said, look, biblical law and its details is important, and the Bible gives us a blueprint for civilization, etc. What was your first exposure to that?
That was by an accident. I was spending my scholarship in Virginia at that time. That was a few years ago. About a few years ago, and there in the bookstore, either at a course that was a recommended reading, or it was I just browsed in the bookstore and I came across a book called, I have it with me, um, the Handbook of Contemporary Theology, written by David L. Smith.
Okay.
And in it, there was a unbiased chapter, quite unbiased chapter on Dominion Reconstructionist theology.
Mm-hmm.
And at first, it made me curious. I was intrigued what it is like, and I went into the famous library, which was in the neighborhood where I studied, and there I was able to find Rajduni's Institutes, and right after I read a few pages from it, I was quite enlightened, in a sense that this was the book I was searching for, that not just faith, that which suits I think a masculine Christian believer's perspectives. That these were my thoughts.
Excellent.
That
Yes.
that you have to, you are not just emotional believer, but also you are related to politics, society, economics. All these things are governed by the biblical laws, basically.
It's like the difference between Coca-Cola and wine from Balaton.
Yeah.
The sharp contrast between modern evangelical.
Yes, exactly. Yes, as just
books.
as you say.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah.
By the way, Hungary was the first. That was the first place I drank wine. I come from a very sort of teetotal, fundamentalistic background, and it was the first time I drank wine was in a pastor's house in Hungary, and the first time I drank whiskey was in a pastor's house in Switzerland. Anyway, so reading serious books is can be very dangerous. Then it can lead you into all sorts of strange things. So tell us how your reading progressed after coming across the Institute.
First, I started to build myself. First, I was sure about the theonomy part, then I was sure about the historic postmillenism part, and so I became firmer and firmer, or more confident, and I decided to start a website by this time, half a year ago, to propagate the principles of Christian Reconstruction, that it is an existing branch within Christianity, and it cannot be swiped away like a fringe movement, as some theologians try to do. It's a living branch of theology, or a movement. It could be both. And I upgraded this site as well, and I'm currently collecting readers. I try to spread the teachings of Christian Reconstruction, and also other Dominion theologian or other writings who favor the cultural mandate, because this is quite a neglected topic here. So if that material is good, I try to publish that, regardless of the subdivision of it. However, I put the main emphasis on the reconstruction, the Christian Reconstruction.
Just to underline that the role of scholarship in Christian Reconstruction is vital. It's a real foundation, and of course, the main figures in Christian Reconstruction writing are scholars. Rushdoony was very much a scholar. Gary North, very much a scholar. Greg Banson, very much a scholar, Kenneth Gentry, other figures as well. They're very scholarly. So the work of a scholar is not very exciting sometimes, I imagine, not as sexy as other applications of the faith. But, I want to underline the fact that scholarship is really where you lay the foundation. And Rushdoony was very emphatic about the need for the role of a Levite, a Levitical type scholarly ministry. So
later, maybe I could lead an occasional Bible study as well, because that I had always an affinity, but it depends on how many people can be gathered together for the wish of getting to know with the comprehensive redemption and the cultural mandate.
So let's take a step back. So you have a ministry now. Start from the beginning and tell us the different aspects of your ministry.
I try to substantiate with articles the Christian Reconstruction on the websites, on Facebook groups, but we have to. It is a bit too big of a bite for now to propagate only Christian Reconstruction, because even basic Orthodox Protestantism can be problematic for a lot of believers who are not liberal, by the way, but liberal Christianity influenced them to some extent, and I have to struggle even for the inerrancy of the Bible in a lot of cases, honestly. And that's one thing. This website, the perspective of teaching Bible studies, if there will be a need for that. And also sometimes I hold lectures, but when one of my friends who are pastors invite me to do so, but not always are those lectures about theonomy and Christian Reconstruction, but there were such an instances. So I try to make use of every opportunity which I encounter, but I face the problem that even already the basic Hungarian Protestantism is very small, and most of it is pietistic, honestly, very pietistic. And from this starting point, I have to fight for each meter I conquer.
I don't know where the receptivity will come from, humanly speaking, but it's, as I look around Europe at the work of Jean-Marc Berthoud and Giorgio Modolo in Italy, there seems to be very little fruit. Now, there is something in Bulgaria. There's a growing homeschool movement there, which is very influenced by Reconstructionism and that perspective. But I think that's just where we are in Europe and in the United Kingdom with Stephen Perks as well. It's something we have to fight, as you say, for every meter that you gain. So yes. Now, tell us about what your goals are, what your hopes are as you go forward with this work.
A good start would be some kind of congregation I could support as a teacher. But how to achieve a solid congregation? Who are who came together before the Lord just to hear about the faith for all of life concept of Christianity. That's a quite big task. But if some people were willing, then we could make use of that situation. But here that's in the future. I see so, because most people are so hostile. Some pietistic Christians look at me like Islam Sharia.
Yes, I've heard that one.
So
different God. Hello. Well, I would certainly recommend that you network as much as possible with the likes of Tim Yarborough, who has really put decades into doing something locally. He's not a scholar as such, although he reads voraciously. He's a businessman, but he's seen a real local impact where he is. I would also recommend that you also get in touch or keep in touch with myself and with Roger Oliver, not because we're great folks, but because we have something going in Mexico and it's good to share strategies and so on. And with I know that Bojidar Marinov can sometimes seem a difficult person to get on with, but it'd be worthwhile getting in contact with the Bulgarian folks as well to see their strategy. But I fully accept that it's difficult to start something, and one needs theological understanding. One needs fellowship with the Lord Jesus Christ, and one also needs biblical wisdom as to how best to approach and when and what to attempt, given your current circumstances. So, it would be great if we could all keep into contact and help each other and support each other in the work we're doing. So
from that comes a great encouragement.
Well, it's I don't know your particular situation, but having talked to many people, we've had to walk through similar circumstances: rejection, misunderstanding, slander sometimes, rejection from people that are very close to us, just a lot of work and sometimes very little fruit and so on. So, the Lord has given us these means of communication, and I know I personally have been helped by people in the United States and Canada and the United Kingdom to do what I do, and I want to see that network strengthened and expanded. And you're very far away there. You're 7 time zones away or something like that, but it doesn't mean that the church can't function in its communal aspect, So this is one of the reasons why I wanted to speak to you, so people knew that you existed and that you're working there. And I think you're knowing that you're working in Hungary will be an encouragement to people as well. So don't underestimate the contribution you can make to other folks. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with people, perhaps how they can find out more, perhaps to give a more clear picture of your work or how Hungary is or your hopes for your future? Anything else at all that you would like to add?
If they have Hungarian-speaking acquaintances or friends, they can direct them to my website. Maybe that's one thing. That's simply Reconstruction.com.
Mm-hmm.
And I can provide personally about insights of the Hungarian churches if they contact me per email.
Sure.
So that's I have already done that for American friends who visited and here and were of a mission, but that would be the best if I could support theonomist Christians also in these dealings.
Great, that would be very helpful. Well, thanks again for your time, and we appreciate what you shared as well. And
thank you for the opportunity.
My pleasure, my pleasure. And I want to let my American friends and other friends know that, God is working, and He is sprinkling people around the world in ever increasing numbers who are working away and who are led by the Spirit to different aspects of work within the kingdom. And so I encourage you to reach out to Bence.
Yes, that's
Bence,
it.
and say hello. So we'll provide the whatever links there are under the video. Okay, Bence, great to talk to you, and hope to talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Finish.
Have a good day.
Thank you very much.